Hey, this is Andy coming to you from Wheat Ridge Cyclery. I'm going to talk to you all today about disc brake maintenance and some things you can do to make your disc brakes perform a little bit better and to help quiet them down. So as you ride your bike and use your disc brakes, they put out quite a bit of heat. Sometimes they break down and that heat can cause the brake pads to glaze over with the brake dust material or glaze over with contaminants from the roadway. So from time to time, it's a good idea to remove your brake pads and clean off the glaze or clean them up so that they brake better. When we're cleaning up our brake pads, the first thing that we want to do is remove the wheel from the bicycle. Once you've got the wheel removed, it's going to be easier to remove the brake pads from the caliper. All brake pads are held in place with some sort of retention pin or cotter pin. They all come out a little bit differently. So depending on what brake you're using, it might be different than what we're looking at today, but they all are designed to hold the brake pads in place. The brakes we're using or looking at today are Shimano brakes. They have a threaded retention pin. So we'll remove the safety clip. We'll then unthread the retention pins so that we can remove the brake pads. The brake pads will come out from the top. Now, almost all disc brakes on road bikes or drop bar bikes, like a gravel bike, are going to be removed from the top. So after you get the pin out, you can pull those brake pads out. If you look at the brake pads, they'll have a glaze or a dark sort of shiny color to them. That is the glaze that we want to knock off. That glaze doesn't allow the brake pad to bite into the rotor quite as well, which can lead to harmonic vibration or bad noises when you're applying the brakes. It can also lead to inadequate braking performance. So from time to time, it's good to knock that glaze off to just ensure your brakes are working as well as they can. The best way to remove that glaze is with some sort of abrasive. You could use sandpaper, or what I'm using here is drywall screen. I find drywall screen to be about the best thing you can use to remove a very thin, even layer of the brake pad material. So you'll want to take these brake pads, lay them face down on top of that drywall screen, and just scrub them back and forth several times. You don't want to go too hard with this. You don't want to wear your brake pads out prematurely, but you'll notice once that glaze is removed, the brake pad is just kind of a nice gray color. You want to do this on both sets of the brake pads. Once you've got them cleaned up, you'll put the brake pads back together around that H spring, or the spring that sits between the brake pads that kind of helps pull them apart from the rotor. So you'll make a sandwich with that spring in the middle, and you'll reinstall the brake pads into the caliper from the top. You'll line the retention pin up, slide it through, and attach it however is necessary. In this case, it's going to thread back in. There's a safety clip on the inside, so we'll want to make sure we put that safety clip back in place. Now, the final step before you reinstall the wheel is to clean that rotor off. The rotor gets dirty just like the brake pad, so if we've cleaned the brake pads up, we want to make sure we also clean the rotor up. I like to use isopropyl alcohol or rubbing alcohol and just spray down the rotor very thoroughly, inside and outside, and wipe it down with a clean paper towel or shop rag. You'll want to wipe down the outside and the inside as best you can. Once that is done, you can go ahead and reinstall the wheel, making sure to get that brake rotor between the brake pads as you slide it in, and then reinstall your through axle if the bike has one, or clamp down the quick release. If the bike does have a through axle, it's pretty important to use a torque wrench to secure the through axle, just to ensure that the brake pads and rotor line up in the same place every time. After you've done this, it's a good idea to get on the bike and ride it around. You'll notice initially the brake pads don't have the same bite. The brakes don't work quite as well as they did before you did this. So it's important to rebed the brake pad into the rotor. The best way to do that is to get on the bike and bring it up to 10, 15 miles an hour and slowly apply the brakes. You don't want to jam on the brakes. You don't want to skid to a stop. You want to slowly slow down to about walking speed. Get the bike back up to speed, slow it down again. Do that about 10 times for each brake. And you should notice at that point that the brake power returns to the level it was before. I find that this practice is good to do at least once, if not twice, throughout the life of the brake pads. They do last quite a long time, and in that life, they can get dirty the brakes can get noisy and not work as well. So by doing this from time to time, just going to ensure the brakes are quiet and as powerful as possible.